Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another event of PMI Swiss chapter. Tonight, we will be presenting you with another project management methodology, Hermes, your ticket to winning a public tender. Our speaker will be Serge Schiltz, speaker, consultant, trainer, and coach, and the president of Ecohermes community. A few words of home rules tonight. As this is starting as a webinar, all attendees will be muted during the session. And if you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A to pose your questions. If you have any technical issues, use chat to interact with our hosts who will be ready to help you with everything. This session will be recorded. Later, it will be published on the PMI Swiss chapter YouTube channel for later reference. During the session, there will be polls within Zoom. There will be polls on Slido. Those polls will be relevant to the presentation, so participation in these polls is highly recommended. We ask you please to participate in it. To ask your questions, so this is you probably all know, but this is the Q&A button that will help you ask questions during the presentations. And after the presentation, all the event slides and answer to unanswered questions will be shared with you via email. Now, please let us know where you're joining from tonight. 26 out of 28. Can we see the results now? Okay, so Switzerland is in high advantage. Okay, which is, I would say, clear as we are now speaking about the project methodology that is adopted in Swiss public institutions. Okay, thank you very much. And now briefly about the agenda. We will briefly tonight present who we are, the activities of PMI Swiss chapter, with the accent on the last year that is behind us. We will introduce the PMI anniversary game, and we will introduce our speaker for tonight. We will then give the stage to our speaker, who will speak about the Hermes method, after which we will start a questions and answer session. We will then close, as usual, by introducing upcoming events, how to follow us, and we will present the PDU claim code. Now, last year was the year that was behind us, was a year that was marked by COVID restrictions, and even those restrictions imposed a big change in the working. We were able to start some new activities, to start the whole series of virtual events, to increase our presence in social media and social good. And the numbers here speak for themselves. We are now in half of the year of 2021, so new numbers are coming. And we will, of course, encourage you to join us, to become volunteers, and to contribute to the success of the PMI Swiss chapter. And now, I would ask Philippe Soupart to tell us about the anniversary game.
Yes, hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm Philippe Soupart, the VP Operation of PMI Switzerland. I'm here to present you the 20th anniversary game for those who don't know it. So you see now pictures of, to put you a little bit in situation. I'm sure after the COVID times, many of you would like to travel and enjoy another place than the home office and home office again. Or maybe you have an home office that looks like this, but I'm not sure. The game is the following. There will be a keyword presented in 20 PMI virtual events. You have to collect all of them and create a sentence with all these words and send the final result to PMI-CH. It will be more communication will be done on how to post the results. And the announcement of the winner will be done at the AMM 2022, as well as the handling of the prize. So you have a guess it will be a voucher for a weekend in the Swiss Alps. So now the words that will be so innovative mindset. So I hope you have write it down. And Goran, back to you.
Thank you, Phil. And wishing you all good luck in this anniversary game. I wish I could be there in this hotel. So now, back to the topic of tonight's session. Hermes, your ticket to winning a public tender. Our speaker tonight is Serge Schiltz, who is the current president of the Ecohermes community, and he was also the board member of the PMI Swiss chapter, so he is quite well known also within the PMI. He is a PMP certified since already 20 years. He is a PhD in informatics, MSc in project management, and with his many skills, he is the perfect person to present project methodology tonight for us. So without further ado, Serge, the stage is all yours.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you, Goran, for this nice introduction. Let's start immediately with some brief introductions. I hope this is going to work. Yeah. The agenda for tonight is first, I'll introduce myself and the association. I'm the president of Ecohermes, which is the Association of Hermes Users. Then I'll tell you about Hermes, this project management method, which is a Swiss method, but it's also used in other countries, by the way. I'll give you an introduction and overview of the method elements, some other Hermes products, because there is also program management, there are some booklets available, there is a free website that you can use, and there are certifications, and this is quite important as the title of this event, of this presentation says, your ticket to winning a public tender, because a certification in Hermes is very often a requirement for being allowed to make an offer with a public tender. Now myself, I am the current president of Ecohermes, a founding member of this Association of Hermes Users. I used to be a board member of the PMI Switzerland chapter quite a while ago, from 2005 to 2008. Very good times. We were a small PMI chapter of 300 members. And I remember very well when one of our board member colleagues, Serge Medic, he said, we need to grow, we need 1,000 members. And I said, Serge, you are crazy. This is never going to happen. Look now, we have exceeded this by far. I own my company, Process-Centric. I'm a member of the advisory board of TÜV Süd. TÜV Süd is a certification body, the certification body that does the Hermes certifications. I'm active in ECH, which is the e-government association in Switzerland. I'm a member of the OMG, DMN, and certification task forces. And you see my education certifications. And a funny thing that quite recently, I saw the PMP certificate of a colleague, which was 3 million and something. I got my certificate quite a number of years ago, some 20 years ago. I think it was 2001. Mine is number 59,011. So I was one of the early adopters. And today it is really a requirement. At the time, everybody asked me, why do you do this certification? Nobody is asking for a PMP. Today, it's quite difficult to get any job in project management without being a PMP. So that's quite an important thing. Things have evolved. Now having a PMP is a solid requirement. The association Ecohermes, ECO standing for the ecosystem of Hermes, Hermes being this project management method. It's the association of the Hermes users, has been founded a little bit more than 10 years ago, actually 11 and a half years ago. We have a system of individual and collective members. So if a company becomes a member, then automatically all its employees are members and can attend our meetings for free. By the way, we have an agreement with the PMI Switzerland chapter so that every PMI Switzerland chapter member gets a 20% rebate on our events. And of course, I personally prepare participation certificates for everyone attending our events, which you can, of course, collect PDUs for. We have a yearly flagship event, the Hermes the Swiss, which took place last Thursday on the 17th. It's normally in the Wankdorf Stadium in Bern. There's just one instance where it did take place in another place because there was a football match and it was not available. And we have smaller events, Hermescope events hosted by collective members where they can present their practical projects. There are excellent networking events, and we publish some guides. I have two examples here. The one is the Agile Hermes 5-year guide, and the other one is the ITIL event. These are our members who are forming work groups, working task forces, and preparing guidelines, preparing guides for the other fellow members. So much for the introductions. If you have any questions, any remarks, feel free to send your questions in the Q&A section to Goran, and he will certainly read those questions to me so I can answer them. First chapter now after the introductions, what is this Hermes? And therefore I want to make a poll. Tell me, what does Hermes stand for? You can vote, you can scan this QR code using your smartphone, or you can log in to slido.com and enter hashtag HERPMI, standing for Hermes PMI. What does Hermes stand for? Is it an abbreviation for highly efficient remote management and execution system? Or does it mean nothing else but the ancient Greeks' winged messenger? Or is it a German term, a German abbreviation for Handbuch der elektronischen Rechenzentren des Bundes, eine Methode zur Entwicklung von Systemen? Or is it the Handbuch der eidgenössischen Rechenzentren für die Einführung von Systemen? Just tell me, 4 votes, 6 votes. Okay, yeah, the winged messenger. Yeah, see here, I have a little booklet here. There's the winged messenger on it. That's quite plausible. 13 votes. Go on, vote, vote, vote. There is no prize to win, and there is nothing, no blame to take. Just tell me what does it stand for? Okay, 19, 20. We're almost complete. And this is really, really, really interesting. I didn't expect this, because let me give you the solution. The solution is here. It's an awkward abbreviation. It means Handbuch der elektronischen Rechenzentren des Bundes, eine Methode zur Entwicklung von Systemen. So it's the manual of the electronic data centers of the Confederation, a method for developing systems. Really, this is so awkward. This term was coined in the 1970s. It's probably when the Confederation had their first huge or big IT projects that failed miserably. And then all of a sudden they said, well, we should have a project management method. And this is why this Hermes was developed. I think it's important to know this origin. It's an IT project management method in the origins in the 1970s and the early 80s. And the goal, the purpose, the objective was to reduce risks. Today, we have a more modern Hermes. It's a project management method for all types of projects, not only for IT projects, but generally for managing events, for creating new standards, for publishing books, for organizational adjustments, and so on and so forth. The big benefits of Hermes is that it is so simple. I mean, it's nothing to compare to a PMBOK. A PMBOK, which is huge. What is it? 800 pages. It's complete. It tells you so much about project management. Hermes is just a tiny little book. I mean, look at this. This is the Hermes book. It's about half as big as a PMBOK and about a fourth of the size this way. But it is big, thick paper. So there's basically nothing in it. It's a very simple project management method. And the purpose is to give something into the hand of inexperienced project managers so that they have a guideline for how to manage their small to medium-sized projects. It is applicable out of the box. This means it has job descriptions in it. It has role descriptions. It has task descriptions, outcome descriptions. Everything is ready there to be used. And it even has templates. I'm going to show you in a few minutes. There are templates available for all the outcomes that you produce out in accordance with the Hermes project management method. I remember when I did my PMP, the first thing I did was Google on the internet, where can I find a reasonable project charter? Difficult to find. With Hermes, everything is there. It's ready to be used. It's an open standard. It's for free. We'll see there is a website where you can download the method, where you can download all the templates. It's free to be used, and it's not limited to public administration, and it's not limited to Switzerland. There are other countries using it. For example, it is also the official project management method for Luxembourg. And it is a project management method that is used by some banks in France, for example, or by even a ship construction company in Germany. And it is the official standard for e-government projects in Switzerland. So if there is a public tender, check on CMAP. If you want to submit your order, you need to be certified in Hermes. The minimum you need to have is a Hermes Foundation certification. Some projects even require a Hermes Advanced certification. Yeah, it's another method, but it is not meant to be a competitor for any other method. It's just a very important simplification. As I told earlier, it is a simple project management method. It is not contradicting the PMBOK or the competency development framework of IPMA. It is not contradicting Prince2. It is fully in line with all the other project management standards and methods, but it is more simple and it is more precise to be used out of the box. What it is mainly, it is terminology, it is roles and responsibilities. It helps you with governance to make sure that everything is well organized, and it offers you a lot of very useful templates. That's all. So don't throw away your PMP. It is, in my opinion, the best training you can get for a project manager, but sometimes it is useful, sometimes it is a requirement to, on top of a PMP, having a Hermes certification. I want to know from you, which project management certifications do you hold? A PMI certification, an IPMA, a Prince2, a Hermes Foundation, any other? Or more than one? Other, I assume, could be something like Six Sigma or Scrum or others. This is a home game for PMI, PMPs. This is probably what most people have, like myself. But there are a few. How many are they? Probably two. Two Hermes Foundation or Advanced. Good. Method elements. What is Hermes composed of? First of all, Hermes is very modular. In Hermes, we have scenarios that twist the method to adapt it to a specific project setting. You have scenarios for IT customized IT applications. You have scenarios for integrating standard IT applications. You have a scenario for, or organizational adaptation for reorganizing companies. which means you have 8 scenarios that are standard, that are available, but you can adjust your scenarios. Each scenario is composed of modules. You have a module for project management, you have one for project steering, one for IT system development, one for IT migration, one for IT operations, and so on and so forth, one for procurement. And this way you have 13 standard modules which can be recomposed to different scenarios, which means you have 13 standard modules that allow you to compose 8 standard scenarios. And each module comprises tasks and outcomes and the associated roles that are for a specific topic. So a module, for example, a module procurement, contains all the tasks and outcomes and roles that are necessary for performing procurement in a project. If you don't need procurement, take it out of your scenario and your scenario becomes simpler. This is a standard project organization for a HERMES project. You need to fill 3 roles that are mandatory. You need a sponsor, you need a project manager, and be careful, the sponsor may not be the same person as a project manager, and you need some specialists doing the work. It's not enough to manage and to steer. You also need some people to do the work. You can have a project committee. It's not mandatory. You can have a quality and risk manager who supports the sponsor in evaluating the outcomes that he gets from the project. A project manager can have a technical committee. He can have sub-project managers. He can have a project support. These are the typical roles, among others. That you also have many specialist roles like business analysts and developers and process owners, application responsibles, and so on and so forth. These are just the main roles that you have at the steering level or at the management level. A thing that differentiates HERMES quite a lot is the very important role of the sponsor. It gives a lot of responsibility to the sponsor in the sense that the sponsor is the one person that is responsible for the success of the project. It's not the project manager. The project manager is responsible for successfully managing the project, but the overall responsibility for the project being a success is the sponsor's role. Very important. I have a question to you. Which roles are incompatible? I mentioned it a minute ago. Which 2 roles may not be held by one single person? Is it the specialist and the project manager? Is it the sponsor and the project manager? Is it the sponsor and the quality and risk manager? Or is it the quality and risk manager and the project manager? There may be more than one correct answer. You've paid attention because what I told you is that certainly the sponsor and the project manager are 2 roles that are incompatible because the sponsor is actually supervising the project manager. He is issuing the project charter, which is called in HERMES the project order. So he orders the project management, he commissions it, we could say, and therefore, as he supervises the project manager, this role is incompatible. These 2 roles are incompatible. The specialist and the project manager are compatible roles, and actually they are quite common in small to medium-sized projects. The project manager is very often the most senior business analyst. The quality and risk manager and the project manager are 2 incompatible roles because, as we saw, the quality and risk manager supports the sponsor in evaluating, in making an independent evaluation or assessment of the results of the outcomes given by the project manager to the sponsor, and therefore the quality and risk manager cannot be the project manager. But the sponsor and the quality and risk manager can be the same person if there is a small project and if the sponsor is a knowledgeable person. If he knows a lot about the topic of the project, he can fill this role himself. At the very beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that HERMES, coming from the failed projects at the Confederation in the late 70s and in the early 80s, the concern is about risk management. And one of the major risks is conflict of interest. And therefore, we distinguish among the partners in a project, we distinguish the three types of partners: user, developer, and operator. The user being the partner that is in the project and that represents the interests of the users, which is typically the organization, the core organization commissioning the project or ordering the project. This is the partner where the sponsor is located and where the project manager is located. This partner represents or stands for the interests of the user, of the end user. Then we have the developer. The developer is very often an external partner that is either bringing in a standard IT application or developing a standard application for develop a customized application for the project. Their interests are different. The user wants as much as possible for as little cost as possible. The developer wants to deliver as little as possible for a maximum amount of money. Then the operator is the partner that afterwards, after the project, is going to operate the solution. Their interests are again different. They want to have very clear, simple, standardized operating processes, which is not necessarily the interest of the developer and the user partners. Every Hermes project has 4 phases: initiation, concept, implementation, and deployment. So there's nothing to think about which phases we have. This helps manage the project portfolio, because you know very clearly, if we went into detail, you would know that an initiation phase is a very simple, small phase, not requiring many resources, and therefore it is easy to have many projects in parallel in the same initiation phase. Concept phase is when you ramp up your resources. Implementation phase is when you really work on producing the solution. That's when you need a lot of resources. And deployment phase is the phase when you deploy the solution in productive use, for operations. And this is where things can go wrong in the core organization. And this is where you want to be careful not having too many projects in parallel at the same time in your portfolio. You have a core organization with an executive board that manages this portfolio of projects. You have a project management competence center, also called a PMO, and you have different controlling and compliance bodies like IT architecture boards, like finance supervision, like project accounting, and so on and so forth, or data protection bodies that give you some constraints on how to realize, how to implement your project. Just a little picture on how reporting works in a Hermes project. You have some reports that go just up to the steering level in your project, which means to your sponsor. You have some other reports that are forwarded to the core organization because maybe portfolio management or the compliance bodies are interested in it. Let me talk a little bit about the 4 phases of a Hermes project. It is quite special because the initiation phase is actually the phase that has as a goal to elaborate, to work out a project charter, as you would call in PMBOK terms, which in Hermes is called a project order. So you have a phase that is dedicated for being with a limited budget, which gives you detailed planning. Only then you write your project charter or project order, as it is called in Hermes terms. So you're going to write your project charter based on an existing planning and not vice versa. Typically, you get a project charter, which is very often quite unrealistic, and then you start planning and go back to your sponsor and tell them, hey, sponsor, this is not going to work like this. We need to change our charter. Hermes wants to work against this. You first do a planning. First, you analyze your requirements. You talk to all your stakeholders, collect the requirements, work out different variants, then you plan your project, and only then you write a project charter. Then you go on with the concept phase, the implementation phase, and at the end of the implementation phase, your project product must be ready before you get a go, before you get a phase release for going into deployment, where the product is going to be used in productive use. scenarios are modular, composed of 6, 8, 9, or 10 different modules. You see there is a specific module for project steering, where all the tasks of the sponsor are in. You have a specific module for all the project management tasks. You have a specific module that is limited to this initiation phase that serves for planning and for writing your project charter. And you have many, many different modules that are subject specific for example, IT migration, for developing an IT system, and so on and so forth, for writing concepts, for implementing the solution, and for deploying it for productive use. The project phases, you see here what is the core of the initiation phase is to write a study, to elaborate the different variables, and to write the project order. The concept, the main element of the concept is the system architecture. You implement the system, and then you deploy the solution to the organization. And during this deployment phase, the system will already be in productive use. In such a project, you have two decision levels. One decision level for the steering. These are the decisions that are made by the sponsor, but you have even more decisions that are to be taken at the so-called management and execution level, which is decisions that are made by the subject matter experts. And there are quite far-reaching decisions that can be made there. For example, it is the subject matter experts that decide on the option, that decide for a variant of how to implement a project, what type of solution to deliver. And for example, there is even a milestone here, which is called the acceptance milestone. This is where you check if everything that needs to be delivered in this project, as defined in the plan, is available, if the tests are all positive. And it's with this result of the acceptance milestone that you go again to the sponsor, asking him, for example, for project closure. This can sometimes be a little bit disturbing, thinking that, well, is it possible that, for example, the subject matter experts led by the project manager decide, for example, on the system architecture? Is this not a decision that should be taken by the sponsor? Well, no. The idea behind Hermes is that these are topical, these are subject matter expert decisions that need to be taken on the execution level, in the management and the execution level, and not by steering. So for example, if this was, for example, the milestone system architecture, there would be an IT architecture board, there would be the IT architect, there would be the developers, the business analysts that would review, that would decide what is a good system architecture. Then the project manager puts together towards the end of the phase all the documentation he needs for the project sponsor. He updates his project management plan, he creates his reports, and forwards these to the steering level, where, for example, there would be a quality and assurance manager that reviews all these reports and advises the project sponsor to accept or reject these reports. And based on this acceptance or rejection, the project sponsor is going to release the next phase, and in this case, for example, allow the project team to move on to the implementation of the system. I told you about this earlier today. Who takes the blame when a project fails? In theory and in practice. Yeah. This is a correct picture, I would say. Yeah, at least in theory, it is going to be the sponsor. And Hermes quite clearly tells us the overall responsible for the project success is the sponsor. And I think this is very, very important, because I've seen in so many situations that a project went bust and the sponsor says, well, it's not my fault. It's the project manager. How can I be blamed for this project not being successful? Because the project manager always told me that everything is going fine, so I'm not to blame. This is incorrect, because the sponsor has a supervisory function. He is the supervisor of the project manager. The sponsor must read all the reports given to him by the project manager. And if he is not in a position to understand these reports, there is a role. This is the quality and the quality risk and quality assurance manager who supports him, who can help him evaluate his reports and make informed decisions. If the project manager is really such a stupid bastard, then the sponsor should fire him. And if the sponsor does not fire him, then the sponsor is responsible for the failure of the project. Of course, the project manager has a management responsibility. The project manager gets a project mandate or a project charter, or as we call it in Hermes, a project order. He gets the typical project management triangle. Today it's a hexagon, but originally it was this triangle. He has the scope, he has the cost with the budget, and he has the schedule. And the project manager has to manage the project in such a way that these goals are met. If he doesn't manage to do this, yes, of course, it's his fault, but it is the responsibility of the sponsor to fire him if this is the case. There are more Hermes products than just the project management method. There is, for example, a program management standard. I've got it here. It's a little thin booklet, which tells you at a very high level how to group more than one project into a program. And this is quite important, especially in public administration, because in public administration, you have very important, very strictly organized fiefdoms. You have kings and chiefs who have their departments and their services or their groups and so on and so forth. And they would never accept, for example, a rollout of Windows 10, an upgrade overall in a canton or in the public administration of the Confederation. They need to be a sponsor of their own migration project. And the program management standard describes how you can have all these individual projects in the different departments of public administration and group them together in order to coordinate them. Then you have Hermes for managers. I've also here. It's a little booklet of something like 20 pages, costs 5 francs. And it is a very good summary on about 10 pages, 12 pages, explaining to a sponsor what is project management and what is Hermes, to explain to him what are his bloody tasks. Because you cannot, as a project manager, you cannot manage a project if you have a sponsor who doesn't know what to do with it. And finally, we have Hermes Online, which is the tool to use. You see here on the screen, it is available in German, French, Italian, and English. And that's already very good for international teams. In Switzerland, you need at least the 3 languages, German, French, and Italian. If you have an international team, you need it in English. And you see here the project management method and some more information. If you switch to the German version, there is even more, because as I mentioned, this program management method is unfortunately not available in English. First of all, you have all this reference manual that I showed to you already earlier today. It's available as a HTML page. You can scan through it, you can click it, there are hyperlinks, and it's for free. This reference manual on paper costs 33 francs. This one is for free. You find it on the website hermes.admin.ch. It's for free, use it. It's always being updated. You have all the templates. I don't know how many there are. There's some 50 templates, Word templates, downloadable. They can be customized. You can even put your label, your logo on it. You can put your name on it. There is even a function for doing this. So you can even customize these templates. You have templates for project order, charters, initiation orders, stakeholder lists, checklists, decisions, business analysis reports, and so on and so forth. And you see here, there is even a functionality for adapting your method, your scenario of Hermes to your specific needs. You can add your logo, you can add your specific tasks, your specific outcomes, make it fit to your project. And all this is made available for free. So this just to show you This is a method that is made available by the Swiss Confederation to everyone in the world. You can use it for free, and it's continuously being updated every 5 or 6 years or so. There is a major update every 2 years or so. There's a smaller update, and yeah, it's there. It's helpful, and it works, and it's a requirement if you want to manage a project in public administration. Now, it's a requirement. What is a requirement? Not only the method, it is also a certification scheme. There are 2 levels of certification. The resolution of this picture is unfortunately not very good. I found it on the website of TÜV Süd, which is the certification body for the Hermes certifications. There is this Hermes Foundation certification, which has been around in French and in German for many years already, since about, I think, 2005. And since January of this year, it is also available in English. Now, since today, 22nd of June 2021, the Hermes Advanced exam is available in English too. So if you are English speaking, there's no obstacle anymore for doing this. And no matter where you are located, in the past you had to travel to Bern to take a public certification exam. Now, since January for Hermes Foundation and since today for the Hermes Advanced exam, you can take these exams online. So you can register on the TÜV Süd website. The difference between the 2 certification levels, they are mainly on terminology. It's just the Hermes Foundation is quite superficial. It's very easy to pass. The Hermes Advanced, which is not required in many projects, is a little bit, no, is much more tricky. It is, you don't learn anything about project management. I really tell you, if you want to learn something about project management, do a PMP. If you have a PMP, you are a knowledgeable, not a good, but you're a knowledgeable project manager. You know the techniques for project management. If you need to know the terminology of Hermes in very much detail, then do the advanced. This is all I wanted to tell you. Let me stop my presentation, and I'm sure there are going to be some questions that Goran was able to collect.
Yes, Serge, you're right. We do have quite some questions. This presentation has
Okay. Oh, I'm scared.
gained quite some interest. Now, there is one general question that says, okay, so for example, if Hermes is so easy to use and is for beginners, and PMP guys are quite knowledgeable, then what is an interest for a PMP certified person to learn Hermes, apart from being able to work in Confederation or Swiss public institutions?
Well, what you just said, being able to work in public administration either as an employee or as an external consultant, that's the main interest, because it is your ticket, it's your entry ticket. Without this certification, you will not get this mandate. You will not get it. That's quite simple. So that's the main interest, I believe, for a PMP of doing a Hermes certification. The other interest, you don't need a certification for that. I think Hermes is quite interesting in the sense that it is a simplification, and it describes in very much detail the roles, the tasks, and the outcomes, giving you even the ready-made templates to use in a simple project. So most projects that we manage, let's face it, are small to medium-sized projects. And for these small to medium-sized projects, the Hermes toolbox is very well suited. So no need to Google and search for a project charter or a project report. It's ready there.
Can we say that for all the things that PMBOK leaves open to specific implementation, Hermes gives specific implementation?
Oh, not for everything that's in the PMBOK. I mean, the PMBOK is very complete. One might argue that maybe sometimes PMBOK is a little bit too complete. Hermes is just the tip of the iceberg. Hermes is the toolbox with the bare minimum that you need for small and medium-sized projects. So there's but yeah, Hermes contains templates and descriptions for the most used elements that you have in the PMBOK. There is no earned value management template in Hermes because earned value management is way too complex for the simple project managers that you have in most Hermes public administration projects. I'm being a little bit nasty here.
Okay.
Earned value management is a very valuable tool, but it has some complexity. And I would say the average project manager who is not holding a PMP is not skilled to do an earned value analysis.
We also have a couple of questions about agility. One says, do you think that Hermes is usable for agile delivery? And the agile module in Hermes is very basic and may only work for software development. You
are right. I mean, this booklet, you can't read it. It says here, including agility. I mean, there is I think a 3-page chapter in the back of the book about agility, about how to merge Scrum and Hermes. It's very high level. What you have to be aware of is that in the public sector, you have very strict procurement laws, which there is a public tender. It's going to be a GATT or WTO public tender. You have to specify in very much detail what you want to buy on the market. And this sets a frame which limits you in your agility of adjusting the scope of your project to what a product owner might want. So yes, Hermes, I believe it is flexible enough for allowing, and it gives you most of the elements. I mean, I would like to have a next version of Hermes, a 5.2, going in a little bit more detail about the roles of, for example, a product owner, or describing in a little bit more detail how a backlog is being built based on the requirements that you gather in a concept phase. So you could give more explanations, but all the basic elements are there. So Hermes itself does not put any obstacles on being agile, and it even supports it to some extent. Still being aware that your procurement laws that are in effect in public administration put you severe limits to being agile in a project. Is there a notion of DevOps in Hermes? Sorry, I have to. Is there a notion of DevOps? In the current version, no, there is no notion of DevOps. Currently, there is a new version of Hermes in the making. It's called Hermes 2021. The authors of the new version plan to include DevOps in there. I'm not really satisfied with what they're doing, but that's another story. There are some of my colleagues who are working on this, who have drafted the guidelines how to merge DevOps and Hermes. So yes, it is possible to the extent that it's possible within the procurement laws, but it is not in the standard yet. It might come into the next standard 2022. Okay, good question about this. I would like to say that, for example, in the last 6 years, we've seen a PMBOK going from version 5 to 4 to 5 to 6, and now 7 is preparation. And every time certification rules changed. I personally started my preparation course in version 5, then I missed the deadline and I had to restart for version 6. Now, can you tell us about, for example, after this event tonight, if somebody wants to start Hermes certification path, do you know any dates about? I mean, should we wait for Hermes 2021, or how is it handled in Hermes ecosystem? Knowing what is going on with Hermes 2021, I don't see yet when the new version would be there. I mean, there's still a lot of discussion going on within the task force about what to include, what not to include, how to change the new Hermes. Does it really need a major new version, or could it just be a minor new version? So what is sure is that the new Hermes version is not going to be available before 2022. So if you need a certification this year, you certainly should not wait. So I would expect that certainly before mid-2022, there will not be a new certification exam. The question that we do not know yet is if it's really going to be a new certification that has a different value that invalidates the old certification, or if it is just going to be a new exam. So this, for example, this invalidation happened with the old certification. There's the certification of 2005, 2006, which in theory did not expire, but when there was a new certification in 2014, the old certification did not have any value anymore. So we don't know what is going to happen with the new certification. Now, the certification, at least doing the foundation, is not very much work. It's not like a PMP. It takes you a little bit of self-study, let's say 10, 15 hours or 2 days of training. And then you get it. It costs 350 francs. So it's quite easy to get. I would do it this year because it opens a market to you in Switzerland, in Luxembourg, or with some other companies using Hermes. It gives you an additional qualification. And if you're lucky, it is going to stay valid even after Hermes 2021.
Good to know. Thank you for this. We have a few questions that are about the Hermes process. There is one comment that says project charter should always include a high level of the schedule and main milestones. Therefore, starting from schedule and then create a project charter seems quite awkward.
Yeah,
it's a bit clumsy to do the planning in detail first, especially for IT projects. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, actually, maybe I could share my screen again, maybe. I go back to the picture where I had the phases and the milestones. This is the one. Actually, if you want to speak in terms of PMBOK, you have something like 2 charters. The one is the project initiation order. Here we go. You have the project initiation order, and here was the project release. This is what we call the project order, which is the actual charter. So you start with the so-called project initiation order, which is a charter for the initiation phase. And this is where you define the high-level schedule. This is where you define the framework of the project. What does the sponsor expect of this project? And actually what he commissions from you with the project initiation order is this initiation phase, which is he wants a project charter at the end. And based on this project initiation order, which is a small charter just for this little project, which actually is this initiation phase, in this initiation phase, you do a detailed analysis, a detailed study of the requirements of the different stakeholders. You work out different variants, you decide for a variant, which is called the option decision, and then you work out a plan, and based on this plan, you make quite a detailed project charter, which includes a budget, which hopefully does not need to be revised, which hopefully does not need to be changed again just after a few which is this sort of charter for this initiation phase. So this project initiation order is a first charter, and then in a way you get your finalized charter, which is used for releasing the project. I hope this answers the question.
We also have questions about Hermes being for IT projects. Is it applicable for out of IT branch?
So it is possible, yes. Its main field of application is still IT projects, but it has all the elements for other projects.
Was Hermes developed in looking at some existing methodology? Is it similar to something else in the origin?
I would say no. It is its own standard. It's its own method, but it does not deviate. I mean, I find a lot of ideas that are on the basis of Prince2. I find them in here, but when I asked the authors of this method, that was not their intent. So yeah, I think they started from scratch.
Hermes has presented reminds of waterfall.
Yeah.
How do you react to changing needs, to changing requirements during execution? Is it allowed at all?
Yes, of course it's allowed. There's of course a change request management like in every project management method. And it's the thing that we project managers hate the most, in particular when you're far advanced in your project and in the very late making of a project, you're almost done. Then comes a stakeholder and says, oh, I need a change. That's what you don't like very much. Of course it is allowed. Of course this is possible, like in any project management method. You said it looks like a waterfall model. Yes, to some respect, it is a waterfall model because it has very strict, very hard phase gates, very hard quality gates. But this of public administration, this is due to the very strict procurement laws that we have, and which require that we have these phase gates. If we did not have the phase gates, then towards the end of the project, the company, the supplier that did not get the mandate, that was not able to sell his project, would sue us. And therefore we have to clearly justify. This is also why we have so many document templates. We need to clearly document every decision that we made in the project, which is, by the way, quite a good practice. But in Hermes, we need to do it in public administration, even in more detail. And this is why it is so strict. But as I said, within the limits that are given by the procurement laws, we can have some agility. So yes, it is a waterfall model with some elements of agility in it.
How, when, and by whom is project funding allocated or being approved?
First of all, of course, you have your project order, being, let's say, the project charter. You have it with the project release, which is, maybe let me share my screen again so you can see this. Okay, the second milestone in this dark yellow area is called the project release. This is where the project charter, which we call the project order, is released. This is where it is put into effect and where the budget is approved. However, the funds are released only for the upcoming phase, which is the concept phase. And as we have very strict quality gates, it's with each phase release that a portion of the budget is released. So at the end of the concept phase, you get the release for the funds of the implementation phase. At the end of the implementation phase, you get the funds released for the deployment phase. So this is how it works. There was another part of the question, if I remember well.
Yes, that was, but by whom, when?
By whom?
How, yeah.
Well, actually, it is the sponsor who releases, but the reference manual says very clearly the sponsor has to be in close contact with the management of the core organization, because of course it's their money, it's their portfolio. So yes, in terms of responsibility, he is responsible for releasing the budget or releasing the funds, but it has to be in agreement with the management.
Okay, thank you. We also have a question. We had a question about whether Hermes is usable for projects other than IT. Now we have, is Hermes required for projects other than IT in public institutions?
Yes, it depends on the public administration. You know, in Switzerland, we are a very federated organization. There are some cities, there are some cantons, there are some departments of the Confederation that require Hermes for all projects. So it can differ. Some cantons require Hermes for all projects, some require it for IT projects and not, for example, for construction projects. But there are some cities and some cantons that require it really for every project. To my knowledge, for example, the city of Zurich.
Okay. Saying that Hermes is applicable for small and medium-sized projects, how would you define that size of the projects in terms of money, of the funding, or?
Typically, money and human resources are very closely linked. And of course, if you have a procurement of an expensive standard IT application, then that's going to factor in the cost. But when I when I mention small projects, I speak of projects. It's unbelievable. Sometimes in public administration, they have projects with a budget of 50,000 Swiss francs. I would qualify a small to medium-sized project, a project that has a budget of up to, let's say, 10, 15 million Swiss francs. Small, rather, let's say, up to 1 million, medium size up to 15 million. I have seen projects being managed as Hermes programs up to 60, 70, 80 million Swiss francs. But a typical Hermes project, I would say, has a budget between 1 and 5 million.
Okay, good to know. In your opinion, okay, now Hermes is defined and used in public institutions, and it has its role there and its purpose as it is. If you put it out of that context, or maybe even within, what would you see as the biggest advantage and its biggest disadvantage, biggest drawback?
Biggest advantage is that you do not have to develop your own project management method. I've worked for many insurance companies and also for banks who have developed their own internal project management method, which costs a mountain of money, which you have to update every 3 or 4 years or so, which again costs you so much money. Now you have here a ready-made project management method, which is proven, which works well, which has all the templates, and every few years or so, there is a number of employees paid by your tax money that updates this method for you, so why not use it? Disadvantage, I don't see many. I mean, you're free to change the method. There's no requirement. If you're in the private sector, you do not need the Hermes label on it. I mean, officially, the copyright says if you change a name of an outcome or of a task or of a role in Hermes, you're not allowed to call it Hermes anymore. I mean, if you're in the private sector, who cares? Use this method, change whatever you like, make your additions, develop your own modules, introduce your own modules, create your own scenarios. It's there. It's only an advantage. And you have a community of users. You have something like, I would say, 100,000 users in Switzerland, out of which some 36,000 are members of our association. You can exchange with them. You can have networking with them. You can exchange your experience. So there is a big advantage of doing this. It's like a PMI community, but on a Swiss scale.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Those are questions regarding, okay, Hermes is a process and methodology. We have quite a few questions about certification. So would you please make a summary? There were questions about the requirements. Is it possible to self-study and then apply, or is it necessary to follow some training, like, for example, for a PMP or some Scrum courses, the price of the online or exam?
So first, there is the foundation certification, which is quite basic. You need to be familiar with about half of the reference manual. It is possible to do a self-study. There is also some e-learning available. You can have 2-day public trainings or 2-day internal trainings. I mean, if you have a classroom training or a virtual training, typically it's 2 days. Some training institutes offer fast-track trainings like 1-day trainings, and some you offer e-learnings. And if you like, there are some booklets available, like a reference manual, or myself, I've written a little book with 100 pages, which allows you to learn the method. That's quite easy. The exam costs 350 francs. You can take it online or as a presence exam, paper and pencil in Bern. There are exams scheduled once a month. And what else? Validity is unlimited. So the foundation certification is valid forever, unless there is a new foundation certification which would replace the old one. The advanced certification is more complicated. I did it in self-study because I like to self-study, and I passed the exam on the first try. It costs 890 Swiss francs. It's a 2-hour exam. Typically, presence or virtual trainings take about 3 days. but you can self-study. There is also an e-learning available if you like. There are some companies selling e-learnings for this. The validity has changed earlier this year. Now the validity is 5 years. So after 5 years, you have to recertify. So there are no requirements for the initial certification, but for recertification, you need to have attended one project management conference. There is a number of applicable conferences. I think, unfortunately, I think the PMI events do not apply, but the IPMA do apply, and there are some of the Confederation, there are some of our association. They're not expensive. You need, every 5 years, you need a one-day project management training, any training, and you need a proof that you have been active as a project manager or any other role, any other project management role in a project during this 5-year term. And recertification costs something like, I think, 350 francs. So that's quite expensive.
Is there any concept of PDUs for recertification?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like PDUs, it's more like these categories. You need at least one project where you have been active. You need at least 1 day of training, and you need one half-day event. And of course, if you attend one of these events, they all qualify for PMI PDUs. So if you attend one of the events that are accepted as events, or if you take any one training, it could be a Scrum training, it can be an earned value management training, whatever. It all counts towards recertification. And of course, these trainings and these events will also count towards PDUs.
Okay, but here we are speaking about the advanced, because foundation does not need to be recertified.
No, foundation is no recertification that's valid forever. So you have to be careful. If you check the public tenders, they are available on cmap.ch, where you see all the public tenders, and I would say some 95% of the public tenders require a Hermes Foundation certification, not advanced. There are very few that require advanced, and be aware that if you do the advanced, you need to recertify every 5 years. It costs a bit of money, and of course, it is some obligation to have a mandate in a Hermes project with a proof that you really have done this. So you need to find somebody who signs the paper that you have had a project management role or any other role in a project. So it's not obvious. Any other questions?
One question appeared in chat, so I didn't notice it in the first round. Sorry about this. It says, is there a risk management with Hermes?
Oh, of course. And that, to me, risk management is the core of project management. And actually, in Hermes, there are 2 levels of risk management. There is one risk management at the level of the sponsor, who manages the risks surrounding the project, like acceptance of the project in the organization or other projects working against this project. And there is risk management at the level of the project manager, which I call the operational project risk management, which means everything that can happen within your project, an outcome, a deliverable that does not work as planned, or a project team member that becomes sick or that quits the organization. This is the operational management. So there's the strategic risk management for the sponsor, and there's the more operational risk management for the project manager. Both are specified in detail in the standard, in the reference manual. So yes, that's very important. And my colleagues who know me very well, sometimes I say there's the essence of project management to me is risk management.
Many would agree with this. So I think we have exhausted all the questions, and very, very, very large interest about this presentation. Thank you very much, Serge.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Serge, for this inspiring presentation. And this is our organizing team. Our lovely ladies from the virtual events team, Isato and Pia, and our volunteer, Leandro Benda, and myself, Nicola Goran Chutura from Roman the events team. We are very happy to be able to present you, to organize this presentation to you, and we hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. So this event is coming to its end, but please don't forget that we have more events coming up that also might be interesting for you. One of the events that is coming next week on the 1st of July is why stakeholders regularly ignore your project reports and how to fix that. An event with Peter Taylor. Then we have every first Friday in the month, we have virtual coffee talk with the PMI-CH board. Some interesting subjects are discussed there. You can bring your own topics of interest, so please don't hesitate. It's 8:30, so usually before work starts. That's why it's called coffee. You don't need to be awake and concentrated for your work during this, but it can prepare you for your day. And of course, 10th PMI Switzerland conference in the end of September. The registration is now open. Early bird registration, early bird prices are now available. So please hurry up and register for this. More events are also available on our PMI website, so please check back regularly. Now, if you liked this event or other events that you participated, and if you would like also to contribute to organizing events or some other activities within PMI Swiss chapter, we invite you to consider becoming a volunteer. You can find information on becoming a volunteer on PMI Swiss website, and you can also contact our HR for information, and you can also contact them if you want, of course, to apply. So please welcome. Leandro, that is part of our team, joined recently as a volunteer, and he is quite well integrated, so please don't hesitate. We welcome everybody, and everybody's help and everybody's engagement is welcome within PMI Swiss chapter. Now you can also follow us on our social media channels. We are present in almost all. LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't recognize this in the middle. I don't have it. Is it Instagram? Twitter and YouTube. Our website has many thousand page views. So please follow us and stay in contact with us. And now, last but not least, we would like you to fill a little survey. How you liked this event? How would you like what would you like to see in other events? So this will help us shape and organize our next events. And of course, for all PMI members, you can claim your PDU code. You can play your PDU with this code that is presented in the bottom. The QR code on the right is for the survey. It's a very quick survey, 6-7 questions, so you can take it even now. And this would be the end of our event. I thank you all for participating. Thank you all for attending. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that this topic raised your interest in studying and maybe certifying HERMES. I have my personal interest. I am currently working in cantonal administration of canton law, and the project methodology that is followed there is based on HERMES. So I did recognize all these diagrams presented by Serge. So yes, it is quite interesting. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night. We are now right in time, so to be able to follow the Battle of Britain tonight at 9 o'clock.